And I just said, but this is something I could do. And I approached them and they said, what would you write about? And I said, I would do sexy history. And that is how my very first history book, as it were, was born. It is not just important to know the law, and any young lawyer, intending lawyer there listening, you also have to understand how to look at a case and see where you can fit your case in. Right now, I'm a mean baker. I can make a really nice Christmas cake.
So you have your flavors already, you soak your fruits already?
My children are to be believed. Myself and my husband are strict parents. And I agree, because I was brought up by strict parents.
Hello, good night, and welcome to Real Talk. Today we have lawyer, of course, Nadine Atkinson-Flowers. And she is a Jamaican by heart, a Jamaican who now lives in the United States, but most of all, a Jamaican who has a connection to Jamaica that goes very deep. And I want to say welcome to Real Talk. It's a pleasure to have you today. And you know, it's going to be a journey of a conversation.
Absolutely.
You will take me on a journey about your school days in Jamaica and your journey along. So I want you to start off by telling me a little. I think it starts with parents. Tell me a little about your parents growing up in Jamaica and that point, your childhood, and introduce yourself to the audience at the same time.
Hi, Ron. Nice to be on the program. It's good connecting with you, fellow Jamaican. I always say, anywhere I hear the Jamaican accent, I always start looking around, because it's you know, something that's so vibrant and so rich. Thank you again for having me on the show. Well, I grew up in a very large family in Jamaica. What we call that extended family: mother, father, sister, brothers. Well, I have one single brother, and several sisters, cousins. But one thing that I have brought from I was a little girl to now, when I'm heading into my winter years, is that family is very important. And one thing about my family is that they always pushed education. My parents were very, very strict parents and pushed that idea upon me and my siblings, as well as my other extended family members, that listen, poor people only have one thing to give them pitney, and that's education. So we got that, and we have moved from that place where we were to here. I was born and grown in Tower Hill, which is in St. Andrew. That is off Olympic Way.
Okay.
That's where I was born and grown. I went to Seaward All-Age School. When I was 10 years old, I passed what we call then, I'm going to show you how old I am, common entrance.
I took the common entrance, so you know how old I am.
Right. I passed the common entrance, and I went to St. Andrew High School for girls. That's my high school from first form until I left there in 89. when I leave? Yes, 1989. So went there, then went to UWI, did my first degree and in history, and I did a master's and did a lot of other things in between in terms of work. And then I embarked upon my legal journey. I'd always wanted to be a lawyer, but you know, life take into all sorts of twists and turns. So
before you tell me about the law, becoming a lawyer, I want you to go a bit deeper, because I realize you have a love for history. What started off that love?
Well, I had always been good at history, I think, and good at writing. I learned that about myself in high school, that I was a pretty good writer, and I always did well in history. So when I went to university, that's what I did my degree in. And I remember people always say, well, you're not doing history, Nadine. But surprisingly, Nadine did a lot with history. Yes. So I actually did my first degree in history, and then I did a Master of Philosophy degree in history as well. And I continued to write. And that writing, like articles in the newspaper, actually started to evolve into writing for the Jamaica Observer. They had a series on the different CXC subjects. And I just said, but this is something I could do. And I approached them, and they said, what would you write about? And I said, I would do CXC history. And that is how my very first history book, as it were, was born. I did the CXC Observer lecture series for a few years, and then they decided to collate all of the subjects into books. And hence mine was the history. That was, I think, my very first publication. And I realized there was more in me as it related to history. So I then went on and did another book. This one was it's almost like an encyclopedia of Caribbean history. So a little snippet here and there about different important aspects of Caribbean history. So there's a little in there about Marcus Garvey. There's a little in there about the Haitian Revolution. So for those persons who might say, I don't have time to read any 600-page book, this is a perfect little précis for them to understand about our history. Because just like Garvey said, if you don't know where we have been, we don't know where we're going.
And for the viewers watching, we'll put a link in and also insert the picture here, right here, for you to see the book. So if you wanted to purchase, you can do that, because I think it's important. Within the age that we are in, sometimes I wonder if people are understanding rather what their ancestors had to go through in order for them to live the life. And I think we have kind of narrowed down the history, because sometimes I do a little video here and there. I realize that some very basic tenets that have taken place over time, people have no idea. So my question to you is, as a historian, no, you're in that historian line now before we touch on the law. How do you think that we should navigate the space of educating Caribbean people, Jamaican people, and even people in the United States about history, when sometimes the very history that we know is under revision?
I like that phrase that you use, under revision. Some might even venture to say under attack. I like our approach in Jamaica, because children start to learn about various aspects of Jamaican history very early. You know, you're in a little, we have the Independence Day celebration, we have the Heroes Day celebration. All of those are very important, because they begin to form and begin to nurture us and hopefully give us an appreciation of who we are. Again, with the Marcus Garvey's views about you have to know who you are as a people so that you don't get lost in the noise. Then as our children get older, it's important that we as parents, we as older persons are saying to your children, listen, Black history, Jamaican history, Caribbean history didn't start with slavery. There are centuries of grandeur and greatness as it relates to us before slavery. When people reach like third form, they may decide they're not going to do history anymore, but hopefully between first and third, which is that's what age 10, 11 to about 13, they would have got enough of the Caribbean history in them. I hear that some schools are planning to reintroduce topics like civics to some extent so that they can have a greater focus on those areas. So those are some of the things that I think it's important for us to do. I think too, it's important for us to let our children know that our history is as important as that of the other countries, whether it's the US or Canada or wherever. And this business of Black History Month, we're Black, we're always Black. It's not a month, it's an everyday 365, 366 for us, because this is our history. So when they are celebrating Black History Month, yes, that is all well and good. But we should have been celebrating that every single day so that we can know where we're from. And as you speak about the whole business of revision, there are so many books out there that are important for our people to read. Whether you're reading books that have been written about people like Norman Manley, books that have been written by Michael Manley or Edward Seaga in the Jamaican context and Jamaican political sphere, whether you're reading about books by, I mean, you can think about our poets.
Yes.
Or, you know, our Miss Lou, our Claude McKay.
Yes.
The only poem I remember, If We Must Die.
Yes.
And all of those things. Those are very important for us. I have a very important little book that I love. I'm looking at it now. When I was a boy. I don't know if you remember that book.
I remember that book. Yes.
By Charles Hyatt. Those kind of things are important. You read about our Trinidadian writers,
Yes, yes, yes.
and about the Haitian Revolution. All of those books
And I
are
think those give a
important.
solid background to where we're
They
coming
do.
from and where we should go,
They do.
And I'm happy because what I realized that the connection to history, I heard someone saying to me the other day, I don't want to hear about history. That's an insult to me and an insult to people who need to understand the history of what has been and what should be because it guides our future.
People say, how I never hear about so and so, and how I never hear about so and so. And I always say, we have to write our own stories.
Yes.
Which is another reason why, from time to time, when I was writing a lot of history books, I think I've written maybe 3.
Mm-hmm.
I am trying my best in my small space to tell our story. So there are lots of persons in Jamaica, in our Caribbean diaspora, who have that knowledge within them. Go ahead, write that. Put it
Yes.
out there. Because if we don't tell our stories, who is going to? We can't wait on other people to tell our stories because they're not going to tell it the way it should be told. You know that we have had great writers and great historical figures. So when you want to, in my view, get the true perspective on our Caribbean history, you want to be reading your Walter Rodney. You want to be reading your Eric Williams.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Those are grounding kind of very fundamental texts that you want to get your hands on. The UA Library, I don't know if it's really open to the public, but it has a great repository on history. The National Library in Jamaica has a great repository on our textbooks, manuscript material that you can go to read. A lot of this is digitized now, I believe, because I know that they have that digitization effort ongoing. So I would suggest that if it is you are really interested in our history, those are some of the sources that you go to. Tried and tested and true sources from the Caribbean, in the Caribbean, and off the Caribbean.
So moving to another extent, the extent when you became or you started the journey to become the lawyer now that you wanted to be. How did that arise and what inspired you most of all?
I had always wanted to be a lawyer, but life got into very interesting places. And so I did a few other things before. I began the journey to be a lawyer in, let me see, somewhere around 2001. And I always think of it as a funny story because I did the University of London program, which is then they call it a distance program. Now I guess they would say remote learning.
Yes, they would. Yes.
And so distant was it that they would send us a huge box of books every year, the textbooks, past paper questions, all sorts of resources. And you would then go up to the overseas exam office at Piccadilly, sign up for the exam, and sit said exam. Nobody for say, yeah, study.
Yes.
Nobody for check, you understand.
Been there.
Yes. And so sometimes now when I hear persons say they have no resources or they have no assistance, I think back to my own experience and I say, but me never have none and I didn't do too badly.
Same here.
Yes. So that's how that journey started. Then I went to Norman Manley Law School, which is a 2-year program. That's what they call the professional program now after you get your Bachelor of Laws, where we're learning about the practices and procedures of criminal law, succession, which deals with wills and probates, and we're learning about how to do the documentation required for a divorce. We're learning civil procedure. We're learning accounts, not my favorite subject. We're learning about legal administration because we're anticipating that when you become an attorney, you will obviously have to navigate those spaces. We're learning ethics.
Yes.
Because that's an extremely important subject, not just for lawyers, but for persons generally speaking. So there is a course on ethics, and I was taught by a very beloved, now past Court of Appeal judge, Justice Morrison, absolutely wonderful human being. He taught us ethics, and I think every person in that class tried to emulate him in terms of his approach to the profession. He passed about a year ago, and the profession is still reeling, and so I can imagine his family. We also did, let me see what other courses. We did quite a few others, but those are some of the ones that really, really stand out to me. And after that journey, I became a prosecutor. I started out at Hertfordshire Court, which is really properly called the corporate area.
Okay.
Court,
Okay.
yes. Back then, it was known as the Resident Magistrates Court. Now it's the Parish Court.
Okay.
I date myself because I still call it the Resident Magistrates Court.
Yes,
So
yes. It's always good serving the people, right?
yes.
I know many people started from that and they gained so many
Yes.
experiences there that it made them better lawyers, so to speak.
Yes, that's
Yeah.
a swim or sink
Yes,
as a clerk of the court, because you are going up against experienced lawyers.
Yes.
You are going up against Queen's Counsel, as they then were. Now they're King's Counsel. So, you know, these are the lawyers that have been in the trenches for many years.
I know.
And they know the law, sometimes at the back of their hands. But it is not just important to know the law. And any young lawyer, intending lawyer, they're listening, you also have to understand how to look at a case and see where you can fit your case in. So I learned by baptism of fire at those courts for a little while, and then I was promoted to the Director of Public Prosecutions Office, where I again had a good stint, a wonderful stint, met lots of excellent lawyers, both in the public space as well as in private practice.
So you're practically you've been in the public service. You like
Yes.
giving back. I can see that part of it. You
Yes.
have to like giving back to be working in that space, and it
Yes.
sounds good because I think Jamaican people love when you give back, and I think you've given back a lot by working in those two areas. But I realized when as you were talking a while ago, you're no longer in Jamaica.
No.
Yes, so
I'm
I
not.
want you to kind of move. You don't have to tell me the reason or reasons for making that move, but if you want to, you can explore, right? But tell me, you're a lawyer, you're working, serving the people in Jamaica, and now you have to make a decision to leave because you have left. No, tell us
Yes,
something about that.
indeed, indeed. When I was prosecuting, that was wonderful. You know, it was a really great experience. And then I went to, people like to call it the dark side, but it's not really true because everybody deserves good representation. I then went into criminal defense, and I did that for quite some time. And then family reasons, we migrated. Now, coming to the US was eye-opening on many, many levels. For those of us who have visited the US from time to time, it is nothing compared to when you have to come and live, because you have to now clean up all of your things then where you did have a Jamaica, and no care what you do, you cannot stuff your entire life into a few suitcases. So even at that very simple level, you have to now figure out, what am I taking with me? So that was very, very difficult for myself and my family, because we had to make certain decisions that we thought were for the family. And so we migrated. But I maintain my practice in Jamaica to some degree, and I maintain my connection to my country. People like to say to me, Nadine, you don't have an accent. I say, which part that I go? I have an accent, I have a Jamaican accent. That's what I have.
Yes.
So I came here and said, well, I am going to try and become a lawyer here again. So did the bar here, and I am admitted in America, and I'm also admitted in Jamaica. So I navigate the two spaces.
Two spaces. Good,
Two
good, good,
spaces.
good. Nice,
Yes.
nice. I'm happy to hear that because there are some individuals that have made a transition but have not been able, whether it be teachers, doctors, varied professions, not been able to make that transition because sometimes it's a difficult one. It's and I know that. So you say you practice in both spaces. As we go further into the
Yes.
interview now, I want to ask you, tell me about the space or spaces that you practice in now and why you decided to go into these areas.
Well, here in the States, I practice immigration law. And I, in, I guess that's in the news so much now. I don't know if it needs a lot of explanation, but essentially, persons who want to come here to live, work, study, visit, I can assist them in those ventures.
Mm.
Persons are probably familiar with the term filing for, especially as Jamaicans, we say your mother filing for you, or your father filing for you. Those are areas in which I assist persons.
Mhm.
I assist persons who might want to come to work, and I am increasingly assisting persons who have had problems. Let us put it like that, who have had problems, but have redeemed themselves
Yes,
and
yes.
are seeking to expand their horizons. And the law allows for that because redemption is something that all of us should be able to avail ourselves of. And
Yes.
US immigration law does present certain opportunities to avail yourself of redemption if you had erred as a youth, or perhaps not so youthful. I'm doing a lot of those. And I went into immigration because when I came to the US, I actually landed in a space where we were doing immigration in conjunction with social services. So there were persons who needed assistance with housing. There were persons who needed assistance with medical care. And the organization where I worked kind of melded,
Yes.
molded the three areas together, and we served a very good need. And when I became admitted to the bar, I said, well, this is an area I'm going to venture in because I'm a lawyer already. I'm fairly good at it, I think. But more importantly, there were not many persons who looked like me.
Mm.
And, let's just be frank.
Yes,
In
yes.
America, Black lawyers are a very small minority of the whole subset of lawyers. And I've had persons say to me, you are not only the first lawyer I've ever met, you're the first Black lawyer, and you're the first Black female lawyer that I've
Yeah.
met. And then when they add you're the first Black female Jamaican lawyer, that probably is a whole other stratosphere.
Yes.
Which
Yes.
is something I take for granted in Jamaica. Because in Jamaica, I don't know the actual numbers, but probably 70% of the lawyers are female. And almost all of them are Black. Because as you know in Jamaica, regardless of how not Black you are, we're all Black.
Yes.
Yeah. It's when we come to America, we learn that some of us are this, or some of us are that, or some of us are the other. But
Yes.
that's something I took for granted in Jamaica. I'm a lawyer. But here in America, no.
So how you talk about making a transition for people listening and even lawyers listening to this program at some point and come across you. How what were the pathways of becoming? I don't want to use the word challenges because I don't know if there were any challenges, but how did you make the transition to pass the bar, get in line to practice in the United States?
Well, there were challenges, I'll tell you that for
Mhm.
sure. But I'm always available if anybody wants to talk about that. But I'll tell you in terms of the pathways. Mine was a little unconventional because I had already been practicing in Jamaica when I came to the States. And so when I sat the exam, I was able to get admitted in a state that required that I show them proof of practice. Now, I'm a criminal lawyer. Proof is what I deal with every day. Evidence is my mainstay. So you can't beat me on evidence. So I was able to submit a substantial amount of proof of the fact that I have been practicing from when I was in Jamaica and still maintain a practice here. So after I did the bar exam and submitted all of those documents, I was admitted to the state of Missouri. But it is quite challenging because when you come to the US, the first thing you have to recognize, which is totally different from Jamaica, is that the bar admission is state specific.
Mm-hmm.
So if you live in Florida, you're going to be admitted to the Florida bar. If you live in Pennsylvania, as I do, it's Pennsylvania bar. There are some bars that will allow you to, they call it reciprocity. So you may be able to either waive into another bar, or you may be able to become admitted and licensed in maybe 3 or 4 other states. But if you're a criminal lawyer in Florida, it's highly unlikely you're going to be a criminal lawyer in Pennsylvania as well, because you may not have the necessary reciprocity between the states. So unlike Jamaica, I'm a lawyer in the whole of Jamaica. It's not
Yes.
like that here. So that's one issue.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Another issue is that obviously it's expensive. And when you come here, especially if you come here in your older years, you have other obligations. You have your children. You have to get a job. You have to find somewhere to live. So sometimes, especially for those of us who perhaps have not gone back into whatever career path they had before, especially if it was law, you have to live. And while living, things just kind of spiral, and perhaps before you know it, you have not got the interest anymore, and you may well go into another path. Another thing I think I should probably say, because I am seeing it a little more now, is the fact that when persons come, they may well have to return to school
Mm-hmm.
to become an attorney here. And the process is a little different from at home in Jamaica. So they will have to sit the LSAT. Some persons may opt for, I think they call it the LLM, the Masters in Law. And having done that, then they have to do the bar exam, which that's a must. That is an absolute necessity. That in and of itself is something that you have to study for like crazy.
Yes, I heard about it. Yes.
So it's kind of different from how we do it in Jamaica and the rest of the Caribbean, wherein we do exams. Excuse me, when I was doing exams at Norman Manley Law School, we did them annually. So at the end of year 1, we did 4 or 6, whatever, and the end of year 2, the same number. Here in the US, after you're finished with law school and you sit this 2-day grueling exam that touches and concerns almost all of the years that you have done. But their 2-day exam, it's almost like you're studying all over again. So you have to put aside a significant chunk of time to study for it. People have lost their minds studying for the bar exam. So it's a different kind of challenge. State Norman Manley Law School is no boy to walk over, but the challenge is different, especially if you're dealing with learning the culture, getting acclimatized, having your children, going to work. It's a different set of challenge that you face, but it is doable. It is doable.
Yes, yes, yes. Thanks for that, because I know many people want to make the journey and they're thinking about it. I think it's important for us to tell them that the journey is possible, but there are some hurdles
Yes,
that they need to go over, because I think it's
indeed.
important. I want to kind of, I know we've been talking for some time, and I think, I know you had a busy day, and I know you might be preparing, you have your children to attend to, which is important. I like that before the interview started, you told me that these are some guidelines, and I appreciate this. And I think when you and I know, and before I touch on another point, that when we come from the Caribbean, we have high expectations for our children, and these expectations
Indeed.
are important. Someone was saying to me why my child is not performing, and I looked at myself and I said, maybe I didn't say this to the person, maybe your expectations are not there. So I think that's so fundamental. So looking at the Caribbean and looking at how guidance that we can give to parents. You're a parent yourself. I'm a parent. What are the fundamental things that you do to ensure that your children understand need to have that Jamaican parent expectation that we must have at all times?
Well, excuse me. if my children are to be believed, myself and my husband are strict parents.
Mhm.
And I agree, because I was brought up by strict parents and me not dead, at least not yet. So we have very high expectations, as you rightly say, because we're Jamaicans. That is our built-in DNA, high expectations. If you remember when common entrance and before they even call it common entrance, because I have cousins who did it before it was common entrance, and it come out in the newspaper, the Gleaner. No
Yes.
care how you cannot read as a mother, you are one of the first persons out there to buy that Gleaner, turn it upside down to see if your picnic name is in there for a
Yes.
school. I offer that to say it is important that we tell our children, listen, you can excel in, but it take hard work. This is, I like to call it the instant generation, where they figure success is instant,
Yes.
accolades are instant,
Yes.
everything is instant and everything must be my way. No. So
Yes.
we have to, and I use a phrase that I used earlier, grounding. We have to teach our children grounding, the grounding with my brother that author talks about, where we say to our children, listen, you have to focus in school. As we say in Jamaica, you have to behave yourself. You have to have discipline. Your parents is not your friends. Your parents are not your friends. And I think that some of us, when we come to other cultures, I won't call any name, when we come to other cultures, we begin to imbibe a little too much of what those cultures offer and forget some of the crucial tenets of our culture, wherein we say to our children, listen, I have high expectations of you, and I know you can do it because you have potential. I think I told you before we started that one of the things that was expected when I was little is you come home, you do your schoolwork, your parents don't have to be there because your parents have to go to work. Their job go to work, your job go to school. Their
Yes.
job take care of you, your job do your schoolwork and get some good grade.
I agree. I agree. I agree.
I don't see it any other way. But increasingly, because of other outside forces, I guess you would say, our children are being made to feel that they need to, success has to be dumbed down. And I don't
Yes.
agree with that.
Yes. Yes. I see a lot of that
Yeah.
happening globally. You
Yeah.
know, I was in the supermarket the other day and I overheard the cashier from a certain supermarket. Apparently, she's going to college, and she said, "You know, I don't know why the professor called me." And I kind of listened, right? How dare she call me? Don't you know? She should know that I'm a working person. I don't have time to do those 45 questions. I hope she realized that I'd rather her not call me. And I'm saying to myself, really? Someone who takes interest in your work
Yes.
is now seen as someone who is distracting you.
Yes.
So I think there needs to be a balance in our society.
There has to be.
Somehow we're getting it kind of off based on some individuals thinking that, success is easy. Success is not easy. It's something you work for.
It's not instant.
Yeah, it's not
It's not
instant.
instant.
I do see a lot of cultural stuff. That's for another conversation happening in Jamaica, for example, TikTok and that sort of stuff. But that's for another.
And
We have to talk because I think we have so much to talk about. But I want to wrap up this interview by us reflecting, and I say us because it's Christmas time, right? And
yes.
I remember when I was a boy, the water guns were in style and dollies were in style, and dollies that they had were just white dollies, and the water guns
Yes.
were everywhere. But when you reflect at this point in time, what are your thoughts about this time? And looking back, how was Christmas when your family gathered around?
No food. That's the first thing I can remember. Lots of food and lots of family members. I remember, I say I have two mothers. I have a biological mother
Uh-huh.
and my father's wife. So they're my two mothers. The stepmother business and step. We don't deal with that.
I agree. I agree.
So whole heap of Christmas cake. Right now, I'm a mean baker. I can make a really nice Christmas cake.
So you have your
And
flavors already. You soak your fruits already.
so I have fruit soaking whole year.
Whoa.
True yardy, fruit soaking whole year. Because during the year I make a few cake and Christmas time coming up now. I'm not no top baker to sell out, but it's enough to get the family saying, yeah man, you're going.
Moist and
So
have nice texture.
yes, and the little rum and the fruits in there just right. Yeah.
It's not one of these cakes when you eat a slice, you can't drive, right?
Almost, not quite there, but almost, almost. So food, family, friends. When I was in like my teenage years, my house was one of the gathering places. Even though my parents were so strict that people would come and just hang out for a little while. So I always have that big Christmas dinner always, because again, with the food.
So
But
what
more
about
than the
Christmas
food,
morning?
you're
Christmas
meeting the
morning.
family.
Yeah, Christmas morning.
Well, so you have to have your chocolate tea.
Yes.
And if you find the right Jamaican store wherever you are, you can get the right chocolate that somebody actually told me the other day. She like it grated. But I said to her, well, I just drop it in the pot.
Yeah, make it
and
melt, all right?
stir.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
You have to have that. And then, of course, as the day progresses, you have a little sorrel. I've been noticing here that I think it's Grace, and they didn't ask me to say it, but I think Grace do a sorrel drink, which is not bad at all. I see it in the
I've been buying it.
supermarket.
I've been buying it, but I kind of cut off because I look at the sugar content. It was not good at all.
Don't look. Just drink. Don't look. Just go ahead and drink.
Yes, but it's nice, very nice.
Yeah. And so by the end of the day, you're even if you're not at home, you still have a little of the vibes.
Yes.
And I find Christmas in America is kind of different from Christmas in Jamaica, because in Jamaica, by next week, everything starts lockdown in anticipation of Christmas. I was so surprised one of my first visits here in America, and I see people working on Christmas Day. So, what is this? What blasphemy is this? People going to work on Christmas Day? Because it's a little different in terms of how they celebrate here. In our Jamaican spaces, I find we celebrate, but in the wider area, of course, it's sort of like more commercialized, if you ask me, here. But in Jamaica, as I say, everything locked down because we have to celebrate our Christmas.
I think it's a time of togetherness. I remember going to, what do you call it, Christmas morning service, right? You go to church first and you
go to church.
And then you come back, you're hungry still, you're hungry because you really want that Christmas morning breakfast, and everybody start
And saltfish with the ham.
Yes,
and
man.
roast breadfruit.
Ham, you don't see that more than once a year, though. That's Christmas time.
Yes.
Those are the beautiful days. And I think the tradition continues basically. I've been to Jamaica several times. And it's always coming together. I remember family coming together. So even although my mom is gone, or I have two moms like you again, they're gone. I still go back because I think it's important to just have level of togetherness that's within the society and the community on a whole. Nadine, I want to say thanks for
you're welcome.
Exciting conversation. I want to have some more with you because I think it's on the historical part of your journey too. But at this point, I want you to tell the audience, first of all, are you open to take clients if they want someone to represent them in Jamaica or the areas that you work in the United States?
Absolutely. Especially for immigration. And now we know that times are going to be very interesting. Let us put it like that. Times are going to be very interesting come January 20. So persons have some amount of anxiety about what's going to happen. I am available for consults, available for to be retained for matters. It's in my view, every single time when we have the elections and changes in government, people get anxious, and in their anxiety, sometimes people make poor decisions. Sometimes people get scammed. So it's important to get good information so that you can make good decisions that will inure to your benefit in the long term. So that's also something very important that I would want your audience to realize, because some of us will not say our status is not as it should be, and we will make efforts to make it how it should be, but in doing so, we have missteps, whether because we're being scammed or being lied to, or some persons who are just giving us bad information. That's one of the things that I try to do. On my YouTube channel, I try to offer information so that persons can at least have a basic understanding of lots of aspects of immigration law and some aspects of Jamaican law as well, because I feel that access to justice requires information.
Yes, that's true.
Obviously, I cannot speak on your case because I have not seen the documentation about your case, but I can speak generally. And so it's important, I think, that we as a people recognize that there are channels and sources out there that we can look at for good information. Mine is one of those, I believe. And there are lots of others. So persons can check those resources out so that they can be empowered.
And we'll put the link right here for you to see. So remember to reach out to Nadine, of course. And Nadine also operates a LinkedIn page that she does a lot of information on law. I've been following her, reading and I'm being educated, you know, regarding the posts that she does on a weekly basis or maybe every other day or so. So I want to say again, reach out to her and always remember this is a trusted person that I've come across over the last 2 years. We have been in dialogue. This was should have happened a long time ago,
Long in
but
coming. You
but
know, we say not before the time.
not
Not
before
before the
time.
time.
So I look forward to more engaging conversations with you. And
Absolutely.
remember, her contact information is right here as well as in the description for this video. Nadine, thanks again, and I wish you all the best and a happy Christmas. And remember, continue baking those wonderful cakes, right? All
Thank
right.
you very much. All the same to you. And lucky I and drink the sorry.